realize anyone was in here. Someone told me to come down and they needed this box removed from the classroom. But you know, after I look at this box, it kind of reminds me of someone. It reminds me of Henry Brown. Has anyone ever heard the story of Henry Brown? You've heard the story of Henry Brown? Well, listen to my story and see if it kind of matches how your story sounds. Because this box is just about the right size of box that I need to tell a story. Henry Brown was born in the 1800s. He was born in Virginia. Virginia is a slave state. It was in the South. Well, Henry Brown had a master. And this master had to tell Henry Brown everything that needed to be done. Henry Brown could not do anything on his own without a master telling him what he needed to be doing. Henry Brown, his master, was sick, and his master was going to die. So he asked Henry Brown to come up to his room, and he was on his deathbed. And he said, "Henry, when I die, I'm going to give you to my son." So whenever his master passed away, then Henry went to stay at the plantation where his son was at. His son had a tobacco factory, and that was Henry's job, was to twist the tobacco in this factory. Well, Henry started growing up, and he went into town, and he met this beautiful lady. Her name was Nancy. Nancy and Henry fell in love. Well, as a slave, you just can't get married. You have to ask for permission to be married. So Henry asked his master, and Nancy asked hers. And they both gave them permission to be married. Nancy and Henry lived together, and they had one baby. They had a second child. They had a third child. They had 3 children total. Henry and Nancy, they were very happy with their family. But then one day, Nancy, she came into Henry and she said, "Henry, I think our children are going to be sold. My master is having debt problems, and I think he's going to want to sell our children to pay off his debts." Henry was thinking of this all day. Henry went to work. He went to the tobacco factory, and he's sitting there and he's twisting the tobacco leaves. Henry's friend James came in and he said, "Henry, Nancy and your children are being sold in the slave market today." Henry couldn't do anything. He's a slave, so he must stay at work. He cannot say anything. He cannot do anything. He sits there all day twisting that tobacco, twisting the tobacco. And then at lunch, Henry leaves and he goes into town. He's searching for his children and he's searching for his wife. And all of a sudden he hears, "Father, Father, Father!" Henry looks and he sees his 3 children. They're in the back of a wagon and they're being pulled away by horses. Henry never sees his children again. Henry's now searching for Nancy. He has tears in his eyes. He starts to wipe away the tears and he thinks he sees Nancy. When he looks again, Nancy is gone. Henry never sees Nancy again. Henry is very sad and depressed after this. Well, one day Henry's sitting outside and he sees this bird sitting on a limb. And this bird starts to chirp and then this bird flies away. Henry thought to himself, "Oh, I wish I could be like that bird. I wish I could fly away too. I wish I could fly away to freedom, to a free state." So that caused Henry to start thinking. Henry was in the warehouse and he sees a box about this size. And that gives Henry an idea. Henry has a plan. What if he mailed himself in this box to a free state? Then Henry could be free. So Henry's talking to his friend James. And James agrees to help him. Then James has a friend named Dr. Smith. Now, Dr. Smith, he's a white man, but he believes that we should not have slavery. He was against slavery. So Dr. Smith agrees to help them. James asked Henry, he said, "Henry, how are you going to get away from work? You have to be at work tomorrow." And Henry said, "I'm going to injure my finger, and then I won't have to go to work." So do you know what Henry did? He reaches over for a bottle of oil of vitriol. Do you know, you kind of have a confused look on your face. Do you know what oil of vitriol is? Oil of vitriol is acid. Henry reaches for this bottle of acid and he starts to pour it on his finger. And James said, "No, stop, Henry. Don't do it." Henry pours the acid onto his finger. He pours it onto his finger until it burns through the skin to the bone. So Dr. Smith told Henry, I will be by tonight and I will bandage that finger for you. Henry goes home and he shows his master that his finger's injured. Sure enough, Dr. Smith stops by. He takes care of Henry's finger for him. The plan was they would meet at 4 o'clock the next morning to try to mail Henry. So 4 o'clock the next morning, Henry, James, and Dr. Smith all meet at the warehouse. There's the box sitting there waiting for Henry. So Henry climbs into the box. And as Henry gets into the box, his friend James asks, Henry, are you ready? And Henry said, I'm ready. He gets into the box and he can hear James nailing the nails into the top of the box. And then Dr. Smith writes on the box the name of the people in Philadelphia who he's going to send Henry to. And then he writes a special message onto the box. This side up. Caution. So the next thing Henry feels is the box starts to move. They're moving the box to the stage car. They put the box onto the stage car. As the stage car moves, Henry knows he's on his way. The next thing Henry hears is the lapping of the waves onto the ship. Henry knows he's getting closer. The waves start lapping onto the ship, and Henry can hear his box being moved across the deck. The next thing Henry hears is someone say, I think I'm tired. I think I need something to sit on. And Henry thought, are they going to sit on my box? Sure enough, they grab Henry's box. They tip his box over. Henry is now upside down. Henry can feel the blood rushing to his head. He can feel his cheeks starting to get hot. He can feel his eyes starting to bulge. But Henry does not pass out. Henry waits. He doesn't say a word. And a little bit later, they move his box. Henry's on his left side. They tip his box. Henry's right side up now. The next thing Henry remembers is being put on a train. He can hear the clacking of the wheels on the tracks. After that, Henry hears a knocking on his lid. Henry, are you okay in there? The lid is raised and Henry stands up. Henry is now a free man. So this is how Henry Brown became Henry Box Brown. Well, you know, I've taken up a lot of your time. I was just supposed to come in here and move this box. But I think this box is a little bigger than I was planning on, so I'll have to bring some helpers back to help me carry this box.
We can help.
Okay, did you have questions? What was your question?
I didn't have one.
Oh, did anybody have a question?
Yeah, point. To pick it up.
It is. Did you guys help pick it up?
Yeah.
It was heavy, wasn't it?
No.
No? It's a little heavy for me.
Us three picked it up.
Yeah. We worked together with our teacher.
All right. You guys are strong. Well, thank you for listening to my storytelling.
You want us to help you?
I think I'll see if I can find some 5th grade boys to help me. Did you enjoy that story?
Yes.
Now, that is a real story about a true person. That's really about Henry Box Brown. He was a real man that really did get mailed from Virginia to Philadelphia. So that is a true story, and that's really how his name became Henry Box Brown. That was it.
What was his middle name before Box?
He didn't have a middle name because some slaves didn't have a middle name. Henry didn't even know when his birthday was because slaves didn't always know when their birthdays were. So instead, Henry considered his birthday the day that he arrived in Philadelphia to be his birthday. Do you have a question?
How come he went in the box if he couldn't get any food?
He took a little bit of food with him. I didn't bring any food with me. He had some crackers. He had a small, it wasn't a canteen, they called it a bladder, but he had a small bladder canteen of water, and that's all that he had. He was in the box for 27 hours. So if I crawled in that box today, and I stayed in that box all night long, I would still be in the box at this time tomorrow, plus 3 more hours. That's how long Henry had to stay in the box, and he had to be quiet.
Is that the real box?
It's not the real box, but that's the real size. So could you imagine Mr. Taylor, that's about how tall Henry was, Could you imagine Mr. Taylor? Did you see me all scrunched up in that box?
Yeah.
Could you imagine Mr. Taylor a lot bigger than me and scrunched up in that box for 27 hours?
No.
Because that just made my neck hurt just being in there for a little bit.
Do you know my sister?
Who's your sister?
Abby?
Oh, yes. Question?
Don't you need stamps on something to mail it?
Since this was, well, they had a big box and they sent it by cargo. So they probably just had a big stamp and stamped the box, but they didn't have necessarily a paper stamp. But it was a cargo box that went on a ship.
I could get it.
I'm sure you could.
I
You're a little
could
bit
too.
little.
Yeah, we're little.
Okay,
Here.
that'll be it.
Probably 7 of us.
No.
That's